Hello and welcome to Conversations for Good. I am John Olajide, founder and CEO of Axxess, a Dallas-based company that's a leader in home healthcare technology. This year, I've had the privilege of serving as a 2020 chair for the Dallas Regional Chamber. And one of my priorities has been to highlight how business can be a force for good. That's something that's always been very, very important to me and something about which I am deeply, deeply passionate. So Conversations for Good brings together business leaders, community leaders, and entrepreneurs who embody what it means to use business as a force for good in the Dallas region and beyond, in the Dallas-Fort Worth region and beyond. Today, I am pleased to welcome Dave Scullin, President and CEO of the Communities Foundation of Texas. Dave joined CFT as President and CEO in January 2017 after a 40-year career, impressive career with two global companies that you all know, Deloitte and Arthur Andersen. Dave is a multifaceted leader and financial expert, and his expertise is critical to supporting CFT's mission of amplifying the impact of philanthropy in North Texas and beyond. With more than 100 employees and assets of more than $1.2 billion, the Communities Foundation of Texas is one of the largest of nearly 800 community foundations in the country. Dave works alongside CFT's Board of Trustees to oversee more than 1,000 charitable funds for families, for companies, for private foundations, and several nonprofits. I am certainly very privileged to work alongside him as an ambassador for CFT's Be in Good Company initiative, and you'll learn about that later on today as David speaks. And I've been very inspired by his dedication to serving others. Dave, welcome, and thank you for joining me today.
John, thank you so much. That was a terrific introduction. I think you could get into being part of a community foundation at some point with your description. That was really super. I'm delighted to be with you.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, we're going to cover lots of exciting things today about how businesses can be a force for good.
Yeah.
So, Dave, you had a long career in global consulting firms, lots and lots of leadership positions. So why did you decide to head the Communities Foundation and focus on philanthropy? How did this get started?
John, it's a great question because it certainly wasn't in my plan. It just happened. And it happened, I had other plans, but what I realized is I reassessed my priorities and my values. That community has always been a deep-seated value for me personally. And this opportunity came up, and I was asked, Dave, are you interested in putting your name in the hat to be the CEO of Communities Foundation of Texas? And then I just didn't know how to respond to that. But within a day, I had a calling. And our grandson went into the hospital with a serious illness, malady. He's okay at this point, but he spent 17 days in the hospital. And I remember the second day, my wife and I were down there. And as I was leaving the hospital, I looked in the first floor of the showcase, and there was a list of, but not for these organizations. We would not be able to help children in the way we do. And guess what? In the first row was the Communities Foundation of Texas. And I realized there was no going back. Not only did I put my name in the hat, I would not be denied. And I wasn't denied. I had this amazing opportunity. And it has been the best decision I ever made. It's added richness to my life.
Wow. So did you have any prior exposure to the Communities Foundation?
Almost none. I was aware of it reputationally, but I didn't know any of the trustees, and I just didn't have much of a direct connection. Of course, I've lived in Dallas for many years, and so I have a lot of community relationships, but it was so unlikely that you would emerge from not having prior connection to actually being the CEO. But I did have some other things. I worked in service businesses my whole career, and Communities Foundation of Texas is a service organization, and I know what that's all about. And that combined with the business acumen and combined with my heart for community, those all tied together, and I became the choice. And I was very lucky and honored to be the CEO of this organization.
Well, you've touched on your corporate background some, so I want to investigate that a little more.
Sure.
So you have a corporate background primarily in finance.
Mm.
So how would you say your experience informs how you help people you serve every day become better stewards of their resources?
Yes, I do have a strong background in finance. So all of us start with a deep competency and we build that competency. And then as the years evolve, you maintain the competency, but your intellect and your interests grow more broadly in terms of if you're going to be a service organization, you're going to understand needs and be responsive to needs. And that will take you, John, I know you experience this as the CEO of Axxess. It takes you into areas that your own personal competency is less, but your competency around solving problems and being relevant to the need, that elevates. And that's what I did over many different years. And so while I used my financial acumen to help me solve and understand problems, I built deep-seated relationships with clients by listening to them as to what their needs were and then thinking with them, putting myself in their shoes and thinking with them relative to solutions. Sometimes those solutions resulted in selling services to them to create the solution, but I was never trying to sell something to them. I was trying to solve a problem. And I brought that acumen to CFT. And so when we have donors come in, we don't want to sell anything to the donors. They're there because they love community. And so we want to understand what dimension of community they would like their philanthropy to go towards and what problems would they like to be part of the solution. And so it was a natural fit.
Wow, amazing. For folks that are just joining us, we're having a conversation for good where we bring together business leaders, community leaders, and entrepreneurs who embody what it means to use business as a force for good. And today we have a real treat with Dave Scullin, President and CEO of the Communities Foundation of Texas. You know, Dave, you've heard me talk a lot about business being a force for good. I know you share that as well. You mentioned that in the earlier comments that throughout your career, you always had this desire to want to serve. So why don't you educate us on and share your thoughts with us on the importance of philanthropy for our community overall and how business can be a role and how business truly can be a force for good here.
Well, John, I thought I understood that for the 40 years I was in the business community. I love community. I would follow things and I thought I understood, but I realize now that I didn't understand it. And that is, the fundamental fabric of the community is dependent upon philanthropy and people voluntarily giving of their time and of their financial resources to making it better. Yes, there's user fees for most of the health and human services that we use, the parks that you might go to, the education that you get, the healthcare resources, government stipends to support those services, but it doesn't come close to providing the fabric of the community to be able to sustain it. And that this community, in the absence of philanthropy, yes, government would step up and some other things would happen, but I promise you it would not have the thriving dimensions and the special character of it in the absence of philanthropy. And that brings you back to business. Well, how does business fit into all of that? Gee, can't we just say, employees, do whatever you want to do. I'm not going to direct you to do anything. I'm not going to impose, as a CEO, my values on you. Well, I think that's fair in the context of imposed values of supporting this versus that. But I don't think it's fair in the context of the culture of the organization. Companies that have a strong culture of supporting the community that they're in have employees that are more engaged than they are at other companies. There's many surveys on that front. And guess what? The best way to make the business more successful is to increase your employee engagement. That's the big resource that you have for the whole company to begin with. And so there's a huge value proposition to doing the right thing in community. Do I think the CEO should impose their own value of do this? No, but I think they should reinforce that a business is in a community. It needs to be part of that community. We want to be a good company in that community. We want that evidenced across the board. And in today's environment, that's just crucial.
Amazing. Thanks for touching on the importance of giving back. At Axxess, we say the G in growth means giving back. And Dave, I know we are all working together as partners to make our North Texas region the best place to live, work, and play for all people. And this community is a giving community. So annually, North Texas Giving Day is the nation's largest single day of community giving.
It is.
Just community-wide giving. And so this year, I've learned that CFT raised a staggering almost $60 million to benefit 3,000 nonprofits.
Yeah.
So because of the pandemic this year, there's been such great need. So tell us, were you surprised by the outpouring of just generosity in spite of the pandemic and all the challenges that we faced this year?
Yeah, I might recharacterize that, John, and say I was awed by it. And I was humbled by it because early in the year, there was significant financial resources that were going to nonprofits to keep them afloat during this COVID period of time. There was national telethons, and you name it. And by the time September came around, that wave had already happened. And the economy had declined considerably. So there was real questions as to what the level of giving would be. And yet, what we didn't measure, what's really hard to measure, is the fabric of community, is people caring for others. And this construct, and I say North Texas Giving Day is a construct. It's, yes, technology enables it, and it's great technology and allows people to access other networks to say, would you come in and help me with such and such? So that's very, very helpful. But what makes it special is the people who care for others, and they like to do things in groups to make something better. And this day captures some of that magic. And it's it identifies reasons we should be optimistic of the future, for sure.
Thank you for all that, Dave. I think you're being modest about some of your comments overall, because I know the role leadership plays in making this happen. So thank you for all your leadership. And at the DRC, the Dallas Regional Chamber, we know there's even a closer collaboration this year.
Yes.
With the Communities Foundation. So thank you so much for doing that. And I know at the DRC, to help businesses get through all the challenges this year, we've also helped raise money for small businesses, especially minority and women-owned businesses, to help them get through this crisis. But I have to commend your leadership. Thank you so much for the role that you continue to play to make things happen.
Thank you.
So let's switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I know CFT recently launched its Be in Good Company program to recognize companies taking care of their communities. This is something that I am very, very proud to be a part of. In fact, I consider it a privilege to be a part of it. So can you share more about this program and how it will benefit North Texas?
Yes, thank you. First of all, Be in Good Company is a program that is part of our business sector efforts, which we call CFT, Community Foundation of Texas for Business, CFT for Business. And CFT for Business is all about helping companies shepherd their corporate giving and their corporate engagement with the community. And we do lots of different forms of consulting to help companies that need help in that respect. One of the specific programs we've just announced, and we're so excited about it, is to Be in Good Company. And it's all built on the premise, actually through this COVID period of time, when we've seen people coming together. And if we get the opportunity, I'll share some of the more opportunities or the things we've done to bring people together. But this is a unique opportunity to bring tie the knot of the business community and its collective actions to do good in the community. It's really two things. We ask a company to come in and to pay a small fee. It's $1,000 to join, and to acknowledge their commitment towards being a good company. And there's a couple of dimensions of what that commitment means. I'll explain in a moment. And on the other side of it, it shines a light on those organizations that are making those commitments, and it recognizes them individually and collectively. Here are the companies that have signed up to be a good company. And we think over time that right now we already have 25 companies that have signed up. We want 100 here in the first 6 months. And we think that that's just the starting point. And we want to tell the world that there's no community where that has business more connected to making a commitment towards improving the community than Dallas. And of course, most companies are doing something currently, but they're doing it in a disconnected sort of way. They're doing it in an individual way. And what we have found is the way to move the meter is to connect it, and to connect it in a way that people know that it's connected. And so when a company joins, we will acknowledge them. We'll give them a logo that they put on the website and their social media and so forth. And we will then connect them with others who are doing the same thing. Now, what do we ask them to do? Simple things. We've got 3 pillars that are part of the program. We want them to support thriving teams. We want them to support a thriving culture. And we want them to support a thriving future for the community. And within each of those pillars, there's some things they can do. They don't have to do all of those things, but we ask them to make a commitment to doing some of them. And they're not that hard. Thriving teams. Are you supporting your teams and doing specific things in the community? Thriving culture. What messages are you sending in the organization about how important it is to be a good company to do things in the in this community? And then third, how are you building for the future? Are you helping other companies participate in this thing? We offer an opportunity to buy one, give one, which is, I think, a great idea. You know, for large, and this is for large companies and small. We want everybody to sign up for this thing. And a large company comes in and maybe buys one for someone else. Maybe it's one of their suppliers. Maybe it's one of their suppliers that is led by a person of color, or someone that is otherwise disadvantaged, handicapped in some way. It could be anything, and they don't have the financial resources to join themselves. They can buy them into this program, so that what we're saying is collectively, here's the business community support for its community. And we believe that over time will build as a network. There will be cohorts that say, I'm interested in education, or I'm interested in this, and we will do it together. Doing it together is way more than the sum of the individual parts. And so we're very excited about this program.
I couldn't agree more, Dave. This is music to my ears. You know, I've been in lots of conversations where I let people know how, we already know we give the most in the North Texas region, and we're continuing to promote this climate so everyone understands exactly what we're doing. So I love your comments about building teams. I've heard it before. We're just excited to hear about building teams, building a culture, and building a future, and bringing lots of other people alongside you as you do that. And, I couldn't imagine a better time to be in good company than now. In your comments, you mentioned COVID and the challenges that COVID has presented. The COVID pandemic has revealed disparities across North Texas and the need for businesses to play a role in helping bridge the gap. So tell me, how has COVID-19 played a role in CFT's latest efforts, and what steps has the foundation taken to address the needs of those most impacted by this pandemic?
When you asked the question, I had to take a deep breath, because every time I think about it, it's just like, wow. Maybe I'll frame it first. This has been a perfect storm in the last 6 months for nonprofit organizations. They've been hit with a triple whammy because the economy has dropped so much. People have lost their job. The health has declined in the community, and a lot of other, food scarcities have risen in a big way. So their demand for services from the nonprofits has doubled and tripled, in some cases quadrupled. So that's the first point. The second is that many of those organizations, like the food bank, relies heavily on volunteer workers. Sorry, you're not going to get volunteer workers during the COVID period of time. And then third, in most cases, their fundraising efforts have been disrupted. And so less funds, more requirements, less volunteer help has just absolutely been a nightmare for them. Wow. And so when we and our team all had to go home, and we had to work from home. And as soon as we got our technology set up, I said, I want you to take all your priorities and I want you to move them off to the side. I want you to come back and tell me what you think are the most important things to do. And we believe very strongly at CFT, up and down the organization, that everybody is a leader, and I wanted everybody to lead from where they were. And oh my gosh, the efforts, the sense of urgency was so high. The level of innovation that they started coming up with ideas on how to solve a problem and support nonprofits, and the level of collaboration just escalated. And when I say collaboration, I'm not saying among CFT members. This wasn't about CFT. This is about community. So it was tying with other service organizations, with other leadership organizations, in some cases with the business community and with the chamber and the Citizens Council, the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas, the Dallas Foundation, a whole variety of other organizations working closely. And through a period of about 5 months, we, not all our money and not all our donors, but we were part of raising $175 million to support those nonprofits so that they could continue to deliver against their missions. And in the absence of that, I'm just telling you, it's been Armageddon. You mentioned the giving days. Well, we had North Texas Giving Day, and we had a special giving day, North Texas Giving Tuesday now, which we teamed with the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas and the Dallas Cowboys, together with our fall giving day. That was $80 million between the two. Our own donors teed up about $40 million. The comparable amount during the same period of the prior year was about 15 million. So they increased it by 2.5x. We had a number of relief funds, and that was maybe $15 million, but it was targeted for things that nobody was supporting. There was a relief fund for immigrants that had no support from any other source. We had the Revive Fund that the Chamber supported us with the Dallas Entrepreneur Center that put out low interest loans that could have been forgivable. There was a fund to support the food bank and the food source called Get Shift Done, which was an incredibly creative thing. And then we had an effort that in some ways was the most outstanding. We put together with several other funding organizations, we developed a standardized grant application that a nonprofit could turn in to one source and touch multiple giving sources. So we stood up a website and a portal and got in hundreds and hundreds of applications. And over a period of about 2 weeks, we got approximately 31 different funding organizations, the most prominent here in Dallas and in Fort Worth. And over a period of 3 months, processed about 1,400 grants for, I think, 600 or 700 nonprofit organizations, totaling $40 million.
Wow.
And we are now using that portal for another round, and that is available here. That level of connectedness, collaboration, and innovation has really been very, very helpful.
A
lot of words there, but
I know, but it's powerful. I'm thinking, how I've heard a proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. That's what I'm hearing you say, David, about how we're so connected and how we're doing this together. And I tell everyone that this community is special. I think what we're doing in the North Texas region is really a model for what other communities need to do, and our business leaders and other community partners on leaning in. And I'm excited about the long list of different things that you've talked about that's happened this year. And I know there's a lot more that you could have listed. So from your perspective, what would you say has been the most impactful change you've seen in 2020 related to philanthropy and giving back? And then how do you think we can maintain this momentum that we have and continue to be a force for good in North Texas?
Well, the COVID has laid bare a lot of different things, and many of those things are not very good. But there is one that shines a light and gives me enthusiasm, and that is if philanthropy here wasn't real, if that sense of community wasn't real, we would see that right now, and we would be all so disappointed to say, gee, I thought I was living in an area that was special. And what we found is the level of innovation, the vigor, the sense of urgency around helping others escalated in a major way. And people naturally came together to help. And that, to me, is a reinforcement of what we can possibly do in the future. You know, our goal is to be a foundation for a thriving, inclusive community for all. And in a way, that's a moonshot. I might say, gee, in my career, I'm probably not going to see that happen, but we have to try. I think it has the potential to happen on an accelerated basis if we capture that spirit, that elusive spirit, and build on it. And that's why we're doing Be in Good Company, because if the business community, which is the most powerful influence here in North Texas, if the business community collectively comes together, I think wonderful things could happen out of this. And so I acknowledge I'm a glass half full person, but I've seen evidence that it's possible.
You know, David, we see it the same way. I'm a glass half full person. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I'm an entrepreneur, you know. But it's really encouraging what you said. And I just want to second everything you've said about making sure we build an inclusive growth and prosperity that brings all members of our community along, whether that's education or healthcare or whatever it is. And I know you're saying, hey, maybe that's a lot longer, a moonshot, if you will, but I think steady steps of progress matter. And thank you so much for your leadership as you've shared today. Thanks for all your time and all the work that you're doing to help build a brighter future in North Texas for all. David, thank you.
Thank you. Delighted to be with you today, and I hope others enjoy listening to this. And frankly, if you're watching this and you wonder how to get involved, please do not hesitate to connect with us. cftexas.org is our website. You can go in and connect directly with me or any one of our colleagues. There's a million ways that you can be helpful. And our role is to listen to what your needs are and what you would like to do and help you achieve that. That's what we do.
I love it. So if you've enjoyed this conversation with David, please like and share this video and join us in the conversations about how business can be a force for good. And I love how David also talked about the being good company. So we want conversations for good, and we want you to keep good company as well. So thank you to those that are tuning in. I look forward to many more good conversations in the future. Thank you all.